Hello and welcome back. In this series I've been looking at reviving a sachet of Boots homebrew yeast from around about the late 80s or early 90s. And in this episode we're going to be looking at creating the plates and the slants on which we're going to grow and store the yeast that we're going to isolate. So, what are plates and slants? Plates are petri dishes with growth medium on them, which we're going to be using to isolate the yeast that we want to grow. More about that later on. Slants, on the other hand, are small vials partially filled with medium that we use to build up the cells and store them long term. Both our plates and our slants are going to use the same medium, so we're going to start by preparing that. We're going to start by producing some wort. Now, we're going to use a wort-based medium because wort provides all of the nutrients that our yeast needs to successfully grow. And it also provides a bit of a hostile environment to other microorganisms that might not suit a wort-based environment. So we're going to produce some wort using dry malt extract. We're going to produce a 40 points wort, and we're going to add to that a little bit of yeast nutrient as well, just to give the yeast the best chance possible. So now we've got our wort, we're going to filter it through just a normal coffee filter, so that we can remove any break material that might be in there, leaving us with a nice clear wort, which will help us be able to see anything growing on our petri dishes more easily. Now, I think we might have ended up with a small hole in the filter then, so note to self, get better quality filter papers before we do this with the real yeast. But anyway, we've filtered out some of the break material there, so we've got a slightly clearer wort. We're now going to add 15 grams of agar to the wort. This will allow us to set this into a gel in our petri dishes and our slant. Now we want to sprinkle this onto the surface and add it a little bit of time at a time while stirring, so that we can make sure that we get it fully mixed into our media. Now, we've boiled and swirled and stirred our wort until it looks like all of the agar has dissolved, so there's no clear granules left on the sides or in the bottom of the jar. So now we're going to put some of this into our plates. Now, I'm using glass petri dishes. This means that I can put these into the autoclave with the medium in them and sterilise the completed plates. You can buy plastic plates, they come pre-sterilised, in which case you would want to sterilise your medium in the glass jar, and then you would take some of that media and put it into your pre-sterilised plates separately. Now, one of the reasons that I'm using glass plates and placing the media into the plates before I sterilise them is that means that the cover will then not come off these plates until we're ready to use them, and the chances of contamination are as small as possible. So I've already got some autoclave tape on the bottom of these plates, so that should show us when these have been completely sanitised, sterilised. I've already measured using water, and these need about 20 mils each to give a good thickness for us to grow our microbes on. I'm going to be using one of these. This is an adjustable pipette, and you can buy these fairly cheap on eBay with varying sizes. So this is a 10 mil one, so I'll need to take 2 drawers of media per plate. That's our plates prepared, and I should say that I've put the media into the small part of the plate, that is the bottom. We're going to sterilise them this way up, and once the media has more or less set, we will turn them the other way up, and then from that point on we will store them upside down. That means that there's less chance of any contaminants dropping onto the surface of the media, and it also means that any condensation will more likely form on the lid rather than on the base. We're now going to make our slants. Now we want just enough media in these so that we have a level line between the bottom corner of the lid here and the top corner of the base here when placed on its side. That gives us the maximum surface area and the maximum media under that surface area to provide nutrients for our microorganisms as we grow and store them. You can find out how much media you need using water first, and you can set up, say, a wire rack at an angle that is right for producing that slant. I've already figured out using water that we need 20 mils of our media in these tubes, and I've already got a rack set up so that we can place them at an angle while they set. So that's now our plates and our slants prepared. These are going to go into the autoclave to sterilise them. I've left the lid slightly loose on the slants just to allow for the pressure changes within the chamber of the autoclave, and I've also added some autoclave tape to these too. Right, so that's our slants sterilised. I'm going to take them out, and I've got a rack here set up at the right angle to set them. And now our slants are set to one side, I can place our plates in and sterilise those. Right, so that's our plates sterilised. We're going to remove them. And we're going to leave those to sit for a short period of time to set. Once they've set, we'll flip them upside down and we'll put them in a chamber at 27 degrees Celsius along with the slants to evaporate off any condensation which is formed inside of them. They'll stay in there for about a day or two, and then we can seal them up either with parafilm or with electrical tape for the plates. We can screw down the lids on the slants, and we can keep them in a sealed box until we're ready to use them. Now, we weren't exercising aseptic technique in this episode. That's because everything that we were doing, the result went into the autoclave. So that means that any contamination that happened before we put the plates and the slants into the autoclave, that contamination will have been killed in the autoclave. So these are now going to remain covered until we're ready to use them. So the media itself is going to be completely sterilised until we're ready to use it. So that's it. Next episode we're going to be looking at streaking plates. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you again soon.